Hey guys, and welcome to the Random Watch Dude. So today I'm making a video, as you probably can tell from the title, about fake watches and scams. So, hey look, I know this is not a new topic. I know this has been talked to death on discussion forums and on YouTube videos, but hey look guys, this is just a Random Dude's Watch channel. I want to make videos about things that interest me, and maybe at some point, provide a slightly different perspective, or maybe not. So let's see. I wanted to make this video about fakes and scams, particularly now, because here in New Zealand, actually, I've been seeing a real massive uptick in the amount of fake watches that are for sale here. I very frequently look on the auction website here in New Zealand. It's called Trade Me. It's a direct equivalent of eBay. There's no eBay here in New Zealand, but it's called Trade Me, and that's basically where the vast majority of watches that are for sale, if they're being sold privately, that's where you see them, and you also see them for sale on Facebook Marketplace. They're the two common sites that you can go to on the internet basically to find a used watch. And what I've seen recently is a massive uptick in the amount of fake, particularly Rolex, the amount of fake Rolex that are for sale. I've also heard about a lot of scams as well here in New Zealand. Scams that go between New Zealand and Australia in particular. Australian market's a lot bigger than it is here in New Zealand because we've got such a tiny population. But despite the tiny population, guys, of just over 5 million, there are a heck of a lot of fake Rolex watches here, and there's a heck of a lot of people buying them. So I wanted to talk about it because it just seems to be very pertinent right now. So I've got a few views on how people end up buying a fake watch, and touch wood, guys, today I haven't ended up being scammed or ended up buying a fake watch. And there are reasons around it, which I think is the key reason I'm making this video. But firstly, I wanted to really talk about how does it happen? How do people end up buying a fake or getting scammed? Because they're kind of the same thing, aren't they? A fake watch is a scam. So how does it happen, and where do people go wrong? Because ultimately, and there'll be a few elements of this video where I might sound a little bit brutal. Ultimately, if you do get scammed or buy a fake watch, in my view, you've only got yourself to blame. So I want to kind of talk about where people go wrong. And one of the key, areas, guys, where people go wrong when they end up buying a fake watch or get scammed is the selling platform that they bought the watch from. So, number one, if you can, get the watch you want from your local authorised dealer. Okay, obvious, isn't it? But there might be a couple of reasons why you can't do that. One is it might be a GMT Master 2 Pepsi, and you're not going to get it in the next 5-10 years. So you've decided to go and buy one, either a used one or one from a trader or a flipper. Or it might be a watch that's actually been discontinued. Like for example, and I'll probably keep using Rolex as the example because it is by a million miles, the most faked watch on the planet. And so you might be looking for a discontinued watch like a Submariner Hulk, for example. But the key problem, the key reason people go wrong, guys, is because they've chosen the wrong platform to buy from. The selling platform is key to this, and I see this all the time, particularly with Facebook Marketplace. Now, don't get me wrong, guys, I like Facebook. I use Facebook a lot, not for personal things, to stay in touch with my family and things like that. I actually use it because I love the interaction on Facebook with groups. So I'm a member of lots of watch groups on Facebook, and a couple of Rolex ones, a couple of Tudor ones, the local watch group here, the Red Bar group, for example. I'm a member of that, and so I use Facebook a lot, and I like it. It's a really important kind of conduit for me as part of the watch community. What I don't advocate, guys, number one, what I don't advocate is buying a watch on Facebook Marketplace. I think there's a massive amount of fake watches on Facebook Marketplace. And I think if you go and buy a watch, any watch, not just a Rolex, but any watch off of Facebook Marketplace, then you really are taking a massive risk, and you've only got yourself to blame if things go wrong. So the selling platform that I would advocate, because I'm going to try and give some positive advice and positive views on this. The selling platform that I would advocate in terms of the seller's chosen platform, where they've chosen to sell from, really you're looking at Chrono24. Because you can use the escrow service, and if you don't know what the escrow service is, it's a kind of a whole another video to talk about the escrow service that Chrono24 offer, but it works. Trust me, it works. I'll leave a link to it in the video. eBay also have something very similar, where they kind of have a watch guarantee function, so that you can buy a watch through eBay and almost be guaranteed that if there's a problem with it, you'll get your money back. But sites like Facebook Marketplace, and actually the auction site here, Trade Me, doesn't have that cover. So if you're buying a watch from a seller who's using a platform which is completely essentially risk-free for the seller, then you're asking for trouble. And that's where most people go wrong, is the platform they choose to buy their watch from just leaves them completely exposed. And that, of course, because they're completely exposed, is where the sellers are going to sell their fake watches, because there's no comeback. The other thing about these sites like Facebook and the auction sites that don't have the guarantee is that you can set up an anonymous account, and also you can hack someone else's account, which I see very commonly is accounts get hacked. So good sellers get their account hacked by a dodgy geezer that wants to sell a fake Rolex. So that can't happen on the likes of Chrono24 and eBay. So selling platforms really, really important, guys, particularly ones where there's no liability on the platform itself to help you out if you get caught. So Facebook aren't going to give you your money back if you bought a watch via Facebook. That's what I'm saying, and my advice is, for goodness sake, don't buy a Rolex off of Facebook. Just don't. Just go somewhere else. Number two, guys, the reason people get caught out is because they look at the price of the watch. They know the market rate for the watch. Typically, if you're in the market for let's say a Rolex Hulk or a GMT Master 2, you know what the market rate is. You know what you need to be paying. And a lot of people, they get dollar signs in their eyes because they see one for sale on Facebook or even eBay sometimes, or Trade Me here, and it's 10, 15, 20% under what you think the price really ought to be, and so you snap it up. You make that really quick decision. You think, right, this has just gone up for sale. If I don't snap this up right now at this price, somebody else will, and I'll have missed out. And that, guys, is reason number two for how people get caught out, is because they act very hastily. And you know the old saying about act in haste and repent at leisure? Well, nothing could be more the case with with making hasty decisions to buy a Rolex watch that turns out to be a fake. You buy it quickly before somebody else does because you think the price is really cheap. There's a reason the price is really cheap, guys. It's because the seller of that fake watch wants you to make an instant decision. They don't want you to think about it. They don't want you to do your due diligence. They don't want you to look at the photographs in more detail. They don't want you to ask questions. They want to give you a price that makes you snap it up instantly. And that's reason number two, guys, why people get caught out buying fakes. Reason number three is due diligence, and I've called this homework in the past in another video. Do your homework, do your due diligence, and when you're looking at a watch and thinking, I'm not sure about this, typically, I think this is the old saying, your first impression is normally right. If something doesn't look right in the photographs or with the seller, then it probably isn't right, guys. So it goes back to doing your due diligence. And if you're not sure, walk away. That's always my advice. If you're not sure, walk away. There's plenty of Rolex for sale out there. Go and move on to another one that looks better, that looks safer. But if you are still keen after something doesn't quite look right, or it's a new seller that doesn't have a history, for example, start asking questions. Do your due diligence, ask questions. If the answers to those questions either don't come, or they are very ambiguous answers, or the answers kind of give you the impression that the guy doesn't really know much about this watch, again, red flag, guys, walk away. There is no shortage of Rolex for sale out there. Just walk away and find one that just feels better. And the fourth reason, guys, why I think people end up buying fakes and getting scammed is because, without wishing to sound sort of too brutal about it, they get greedy. And I've seen this a lot, actually. I think a lot of people end up making snap decisions and end up buying a fake watch or getting scammed. In other words, they don't even get the watch; they just lose their money. I think it's because they got greedy, because the price on a fake or from a scammer will always generally be slightly under what it should be. And I think what typically happens is people get a bit greedy, and sometimes I think they might look at it and say, oh, right, well, that I can put that up for sale the next day, after I've bought this, and make myself a couple of thousand. I'm going to do this. And so I think that's greed. Ultimately, that's what it comes down to. It's greed. And I think greediness leads to people getting caught out very, very frequently. So they're kind of the four reasons, guys. One is, you're buying off of a very dodgy platform. Two is you bought a watch even though you knew the price was too cheap. Three is you didn't do your due diligence. And number four is you got greedy. They're the four key reasons why you either buy a fake or you get scammed. Now I've got some, they're the negatives, but I've got some positives now about how you can avoid that happening to you. And again, touch wood, I've not been caught out in this, because I tend to take my time, guys. I tend to really study the watch I want to buy, know what I'm looking at, and I want to know who I'm dealing with as well, and that's critical. Number one, for how to avoid getting caught out is just don't buy a watch off of Facebook or any selling platform where the seller is anonymous, A, and B, where the platform itself is not liable if you end up getting scammed or by a fake. If one of those two things is present in the deal, walk away. Number two, do your due diligence, do your homework, make sure you understand what the watch should look like, make sure that the pictures that you're looking at are of the actual watch, ask lots of questions, ask for more pictures, ask difficult questions of the seller. If they're not prepared to answer them or you get ambiguous answers, walk away. Number four is get the watch inspected. So, and if you're out of state or out of town or in New Zealand, if the watch is on another island, don't bother, guys. There's lots of Rolex out there. There's lots and lots of these watches out there. If all of these things aren't lined up perfectly for you, just don't go ahead with it. This is my advice. My advice, if you're putting down a lot of money and buying an expensive watch, is I want to have that watch in my hand. You should have that watch in your hand and be looking at it, unless you're buying off of a very, very safe kind of risk-free site like Chrono24, like eBay, where you've basically got insurance. If things go wrong, you've got insurance, and it's the site that's insuring you, not yourself. So get the watch inspected, look at it yourself before you hand over any cash. If you can't do that and you haven't got insurance from the seller, walk away. And just finally, guys, and I mentioned it earlier, I touched on it earlier, is point number 5 is don't be greedy. Try not to be greedy. Take your time. If a watch looks too cheap, there's something wrong with it. If the seller is new, or they're being difficult, or they're being ambiguous, there's something dodgy going on. Walk away. So you've got to be careful that even if the watch is genuine, it might actually be stolen. So these are all the reasons why you should really, really just take your time, buy from a good seller. There's an old saying, I see this a lot actually, is you buy the seller, particularly when you're buying an expensive watch, you buy the seller. I think that's a little bit too vague. You're buying the seller, yes, you have to trust the seller, there's no question of that, you have to trust the seller implicitly 100%, but you've also got to back yourself to be making a good decision. And I think all too often, I think when people get caught out, they get scammed or they buy a fake, they're looking for other external forces and external factors to blame, when I actually think ultimately, guys, you've got to blame yourself. If you get caught, you've got to blame yourself. So do all these things that I've just mentioned, and you will not get caught out and you will not get scammed. The key one for me is take your time. I'll keep saying it until I'm blue in the face, is take your time. There's no rush. Usually when you rush into something, that's when you get caught, isn't it? And just finally, guys, ultimately, if none of this works for you and you're still not sure, the best way to not get caught out by a scammer, to not buy a fake or a stolen watch, the best way is to go and buy a brand new one from an authorised dealer. You know, that's essentially what it comes down to, isn't it? So on that note, guys, I'm going to stop this now, and it's the last time, I promise, that I'll talk about fakes and scams and stolen watches. I want to move on to more positive things, but there was a time and a place for me to make this video, and I feel like it's now. Please do, if you have any more comments and more advice that you'd like to offer, you know, the people that are watching this video, please drop them into the comments. If you like the video and the content, please do subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Cheers.